Hello, everybody. Thank you so much to all of our members for joining today's webcast. Today's webcast is sponsored by Traveling Coaches, the assessment to accomplishment. And now I'd like to introduce today's speaker, the Vice President of Strategic Accounts for Traveling Coaches, Joe Buser. Joe?
Thank you, Justin. Thank you all for joining us today. I know everyone is quite busy. Several of you, I looked at the registration list, several of you, Gina and I met 2 weeks ago at the HR conference in Chicago, and we talked a little bit about LegalMind and about this event today, so thank you for being patient and joining us. And for those of you that we didn't get to meet at the specialty conference in Chicago, welcome. Today we're going to talk a little bit about LegalMind, which is our talent development assessment and management tool. It has become extremely popular among law firms of all sizes, and we wanted to just give you a look at what we've been doing with LegalMind in the last year and how it's progressing, and then answer some questions that you might have today. I have just a couple of slides to talk a little bit about the tool in general, and then we're going to jump into an actual live demonstration of the tool. So for those of you that may not be familiar with Traveling Coaches, we are specialists in user adoption and education services for law firms. We work exclusively with law firms. Our company has been around for 22 years. We support over 1,000 law firms around the world. And in this particular niche, that of technology education and change management and talent development among law firms, we are probably the largest company in the world. We have worked with a number of the firms that are on the call today, and if we haven't worked with you yet, we look forward to in the future. What we're going to look at today, LegalMind, our talent development system, is the evolution of some offerings that we have had for a number of years. In particular, we for many years have delivered content to law firms for technology training. Today, with LegalMind, we have a much broader content library that includes soft skills and new kinds of technology content, as well as compliance content. And we have wrapped that into a portal that we call LegalMind, so now a firm can not only get all of our great content, they can get a tool that serves it up directly to users when necessary, that you can use to drive onboarding and new hire events, that you can use to drive professional development of your lawyers and of your staff to develop those high-value competencies that are going to help the firm to move into the new era of supporting our clients. So let's just take a quick look at what is LegalMind. First and foremost, LegalMind is a massive content library, which, by the way, includes not only our information, but our LegalMind customers like yourself have the ability to weave within the portal your content as well, and I'll show that to you. But what we are trying to do here is to help firms to develop the high-value competencies among their staff and lawyers. And often those competencies are rather complicated when they're broken down and try to understand what their granular nature is. And I use this image of a Matryoshka doll. You may have seen these. These are popular in Eastern Europe. They're also often called nesting dolls. But you open each level of the doll to find just yet another level inside and another level inside until you finally get down to the little nut at the center, in this case, the small Matryoshka. If you'll think of that in its reverse, this is the way that we approach competency development. And we look at a competency, a high-value competency like effective time management or problem-solving skills or high levels of communication skills as the ultimate goal. But to get to that level of a competency, there are many groups of skills and skill sets and subsets that need to be developed to be able to say that I'm competent at the highest level. And like the Matryoshka doll, our content library is filled with hundreds or thousands of discrete skills, which we can then roll up together to form different types of competency development. And we give you templates to do that. I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a moment. But suffice it to say is we break our world down into lots of smaller competencies, and we divide them up into level 1 and level 2 and level 3 skills. And then we give you an opportunity to put them together in an automated fashion and to take your employees through kind of a development program. This is very popular when we look at corporate talent development. If we go to not the law firms, but we go to our sisters on the corporate side of the street, this concept of talent development and of using portals to drive talent development is very common. In fact, Cindy Mitchell, our architect for LegalMind, came to us from IBM, where she spent 20 years developing talent development systems for IBM and for IBM's customers. those large Fortune 500 companies that needed to put together programming to develop their new hires and their laterals into highly effective executives in their organizations. We're using the same technologies and the same ideas that work there, and we're adapting it to law firms and adapting it to the content library that traveling coaches has always had. So we break these competencies down into their component tasks. We have taken our entire content library and broken it into what I would call 6 competency domains. First and foremost are the areas of technology, and we have always had a lot of content in this area. But some new areas in which we're developing content now are client service and business development. This is important not only for the lawyers but for the staff that are part of their teams. Problem-solving skills, professional development, not only for the lawyers and their ongoing, their CLE and other things that are involved in their development to partner track, but staff as well. Communication skills. Obviously, we're in a communication business. So when we look at what is LegalMind, and if you were to subscribe to LegalMind, you would subscribe to this massive content library that we have organized into these 6 different areas, and to which you can build programming. We come with templates that you can start with, but you can customize for your particular firm, picking and choosing from our content library, and when necessary, supplementing with your own content. And you can build programs to develop these 6 different areas of competency among your staff and among your lawyers. And this is new. There have been some entrants, and we were even participants in the past that have provided some limited level of technical training for staff and lawyers. But we believe LegalMind is the first very legal-specific tool that provides this more broad concept of high-value competencies than just being able to perform certain tasks using Microsoft Office or some of the other basic technologies. I mentioned earlier levels, and we break our knowledge down, and we tend to approach that through an idea that there are different levels of knowledge that are required based on one's role and based on one's assignment. Level 1 skills would be what we would call table stakes, or basic knowledge that's necessary to be able to work at the firm. So if I were to take complex technology like Microsoft Word, I might say that for the role of LAA or PA or legal secretary, whatever our firm might term that particular role, that there is a base level of knowledge that's required for all legal secretaries in my firm, regardless of their tenure or their practice group. And that might be our level 1 skills in our first phase of development. But at some point, certain of the people within that role need to have a higher level of competency, one that we would call level 2 or proficiency with the tool, that would include some more advanced skills. It may not be that everyone in the firm is required to have proficiency of that particular competency area, but some may, and we can continue to develop them further through level 2 skills, and then ultimately some may need to be what we would call expert level or have level 3 skills in a particular area. Again, it may not be universal in the firm that all legal secretaries be expert on all of our technologies and all of our communications and all of our business development. That would not really be practical to try to drive everyone to expert level. But it may be that in certain things, there needs to be beyond level 1, maybe a universal level of level 2. And in some particular areas, we have to drive people all the way to a level 3. We have content. It's been organized in this fashion. And again, you have the ability to build these learning programs to track people's growth through the programs, and then to be able to look at individuals and determine how do I want to assign them, how do I want to team them, where are the ones where I need expert level expertise, and how do I marry them with others. We find that among younger generations, the millennials, the Gen X, Y, Z, many conferences, ALA conferences, the HR conference a few weeks ago, and others that we attend have for years talked about the differences in the development of some of the younger staff that are coming to replace the support staff that may have been with the firm for 15, 20, 25 years. And when we look at the younger groups, we have an interesting phenomenon in that they may not work at the firm as long. We may not get 15, 20 years out of a new secretary that's just recruited out of college now. We might only get 2 years. In fact, that was discussed at the conference, that the average of a new hire in a support staff role that's new to legal is 24 months if they tend to be a millennial. And how do we quickly get them up to speed to be able to get maximum value out of them and maybe retain them longer than 2 years, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years? There are some things that we can do with talent development that may aid in that cause. One, we have some quick start programs built into LegalMind that allow you to quickly take a new hire and get them acquainted not only with the practice and the business of law, but also with the things that are unique about your firm, and quickly get them into a professional development program so that they have the skills and the competencies that are necessary to be able to perform as soon as possible. We also find that for some of these generations, having the ability to look at what their growth track looks like, to be able to see where they've grown, to be able to opt into certain programs, to be able to demonstrate to their supervisor or to others in their group their competence in certain areas, and maybe the opportunity to move within the firm. These are great incentives for attracting and retaining some of that younger talent. So again, LegalMind might benefit not only in your preparation of new hires, but also in your ability to retain them for a longer period of time. I mentioned earlier that we have a great assessment tool. We actually have multiple assessment tools built into LegalMind. And this is a big topic right now. Many of our customers are saying, we want to know what is a baseline of understanding among our staff and lawyers in these different competency areas, not only in technology, but what are their baseline attributes in communications or in problem solving or business development. And then once we understand the baseline and we understand where we'd like the different roles to go, how do we understand how to grow them? So within LegalMind, there are a number of different assessment capabilities, and we can weave these into the learning program so that we can determine at moments in time if people are understanding the information, if they're ready to move forward. We can also use our assessment tools to determine that people already possess certain skills and competencies, and they can kind of move through the program and not have to waste their time, as it were, watching materials which they've already can demonstrate competency. So we have these tools built within. For some firms, it's difficult to connect the assessment with the actual professional development. We've got some ways to do that through some of the templates and the way we drive activity. We'll show you that in a moment. And then lastly, for some firms, it is a very threatening event to run an assessment program of staff. For many, they see that as the firm's attempt to weed out, to look through and find fault and cause people to leave. It can often result in a real dip in morale. We have some proven methods to turn assessment not into a scary thing, but actually into a very positive event, where individuals are given an opportunity to demonstrate what they do know and to avoid wasting their time and yours and your expense in developing skills that they already have under their belt. But it gives them an opportunity to find the places where they aren't, and where if they were to raise these new levels of competency, they can not only perform better in their current job, but maybe they would have opportunity to grow in other places in the firm. All of this is built into LegalMind. So what I'd like to do now is show you the tool. So let me see if I can remember what to do. And we're going to do this. And you should, at this point, now see my screen. And I am actually logged into LegalMind. So this is the LegalMind personal learning portal. As I mentioned, it lives in the cloud. You've heard the term cloud. It lives in the internet. We manage this massive database of content, and you can access it. You and your employees can access it anytime, anywhere in the world from any device. So I can access it from my computer when I'm in the office, but if I desire, I could also access it from my mobile phone, from my tablet, my Mac, my iPad, my Surface Pro. It really matters not, and it doesn't matter what the form factor is. If it's large or small, I can landscape it, pinch it, stretch it. We design our content to seamlessly, what we call responsive design, perform on these different devices. We're big on imagery and white space, so it renders itself quite well on phones and tablets if that's the way people are consuming it, particularly our lawyers. And let me just kind of give you a little bit of a tour of what LegalMind is. First of all, you'll see this imagery at the top. This imagery is customizable for the firm. So we have some firms that use some imagery that we provide that's just generic to learning. We've had others that have used some firm-specific imagery that mimics their intranet or mimics their some other firm branding, and when people move within and out of our portal, they're not even necessarily aware they've left the firm's intranet. So you have some latitude on what the site looks like. The content is organized in a couple of ways. I mentioned before that we have these different competency domains, and I'll show you those. We also have the concept of what we call featured items. So you may push to this landing page particular things of interest that you might want the users to partake of today. So it's Cybersecurity Month. Maybe I push a new cybersecurity video about some event, or maybe there's some new program coming in place at the firm, some new software. Or maybe we're having flu shots in the lobby this week, and we want to advertise that. We can use this, this featured class area to push whatever information we want to our user community. If we wanted to look at the content, it's been organized in a couple of different ways. We have it by competency area. You saw a moment ago I showed you those competency domains. This will give you an idea of some of the content that we create. Now, I'll tell you this, we are big fans of what's called micro-learning. So our content often is in a matter of minutes, not hours. We want people to consume the important concepts, but to be able to do it from their desk or their phone or their tablet while they're in the midst of doing other work, not have to take out whole hours of time. We really want learning to be micro-learning and be available just in time or in part of a program so that it can be not intrusive in a day. And I'll show you in a moment what that means for new hire and onboarding. But we have content in here about different types of, what are we in here? We're in client service. We've got content for business development. Click through a couple of things here just to give you an idea of some of the types of content. If one goes to any one of these particular topics, one can get different media types. Maybe I prefer to read things. I can get reading material. If I prefer to watch that micro-learning, that video, I can watch a video. If I'd like to test my knowledge, there could be knowledge checks. There could be step-by-step cards that I might open up in PD format because I just want the high points. All of those are available from a single click. So now I don't have to search for topic and then search by media. Once I've found a topic that's of interest, the system will present me with all the different media choices. We also have, like I mentioned, a large technology library, and we have for years. The nice thing about LegalMind is that we host all of that content in our cloud, and we filter it based on what you have in your firm. So rather than you have to download certain topics from us and upload them into a local system, and then when you upgrade to new software or replace software, you have to download more stuff and replace, we maintain all of that for you. You just tell us when you make changes to your environment, and we'll change the filters. In this particular case, these are the tools that this firm has in place. But maybe your firm doesn't use iManage, you use Net Documents. You would see different things here. Or you're on a different version of Office, or you use template numbering tools that are different. We have compliance content. So we have a whole program called OnGuard, which is full of information security awareness content. There are new bits coming online about diversity and sexual harassment. And you may have, again, your HR department, your professional development, your IT folks may want to bring their content to bear, whether it be compliance content or technology content or other content around professional development. You can make that available. Of course, we have calendars. If you have live classes, whether that be an instructor that's physically present in the room, in the office, or maybe delivered virtually. The instructor is in New York, but the students are in Dallas and Chicago. We can schedule live classes and people can participate in those as well. Let me show you real quick. I keep talking about these learning programs and templates. Let me show you what one of those looks like. I'm going to go to My Learning. I'm logged in as a lady by the name of Susan Gold. Susan is an LAA in our firm, Tucker & Boyette. We call our what once were legal secretaries, we call them legal administrative assistants, or LAAs. And these are the programs that Susan Gold has been enrolled in based on her role in the firm. And we build audiences, so you can assign learning programs to people based on their location or their title or their practice group or any combination of variables. We can build learning programs. And that's part of what we do when we set up your instance of LegalMind. You have this giant content library behind you. You have all of these templates and tools ready to go. We'll create the correct mix of that content and of those tools for your firm, and that's what everyone from your firm will address when they log in from their computer or from their laptop or from their phone. So in this case, Susan is a new hire, and you'll see one of her programs here is getting started. So we have created some new hire or onboarding programs for firms, and we now have these templates loaded into LegalMind, and you can take advantage of these. If your firm is like many of the firms with whom we have worked over the years, new hire has always and continues to be the kind of a hot potato event that few want to take ownership of. When the new hire arrives at the firm, it could be anywhere from a couple of hours to a couple of days of orientation that includes policies and procedures and benefits and sign-offs and compliance training and meetings with HR and meetings with practice group and meetings with the IT trainers and the learning of some fundamental IT knowledge about the particular tools that the firm has. But it's such a condensed event that we find, and the research indicates that many do not get a lot of value from these events, whether they're a couple of hours or a couple of days. They're just too much information and it's out of context. That the preferred way to onboard our new hires might be to stretch it out, give them more information, but not try and do it all in an event on their first day. So what could we do in the first day, first week, first month? How can we take information and input from HR and IT and professional development and weave it into a program that I could consume myself through the portal, as well as have opportunity to meet with individuals at the appropriate time? This is what our firms tell us they want, and this is what we've built in LegalMind. So you can see kind of a representative learning program here. You would have a program that would be particular to your firm, and it may have more meat in it than this little example. But what you'll see here is there may be opportunity to read or to watch video or to see recorded presentations about material that we might be delivering live every week when we could just record it, or we already have it recorded. And if your HR department has procedural manuals and benefits and things like that that are already living in your intranet or on a SharePoint site or in a server somewhere, we can link to those documents. They can become part of this workflow, and you don't have to move them, you don't have to upload them, you don't have to copy them, anything at all. We'll just take this placeholder here and link to your document. And so as I'm going through this learning program and I have calls to read about policy or to read about and understand a benefit or to sign off on a document, I can be jumping via these links back and forth to information that you maintain in its native source, and as you update it, the next person that hits that link sees the newest version. So you update it in one place, and it's automatically updated inside LegalMind for the next new hire. And it could be a combination of benefit information, of procedural information. Here's some compliance training. You see some sexual harassment. Here's some content from traveling coaches about business etiquette or terminology or practice group specific content. Here's a little bit of security awareness content. If they're going to have logins into our network, we might want to require that the new hire understand some of our security initiatives. And then lastly, they might get a certificate, graduate, and at the end of that week, then move into a professional development program. If there is an orientation, which there often is, we can prereq that. We can say, here's some things we'd like you to do before you come to that orientation event. Read this, watch this, sign this, prepare your questions about that, and we can serve all of that up. This is all programmed and ready to go for you. This makes the new hire event much more efficient, but also much more engaging and much more productive. And so this is one of the things we would do in an onboarding of you into LegalMind, is we would sit down and say, let's look at what your new hire events look like today and what we could do to improve them using the tool and create some onboarding programs for your new hires. That's one way that we leverage the content. And then once someone's been onboarded and they've got a good start, now we start to move them through professional development. And today, depending on where your firm is, whether you have trainers or not, you might have trainers, and they might spend an inordinate amount of their time doing these new hire events for 1 or 2 people at a time, and doing maybe some baseline. We talked earlier about level 1, level 2, level 3 skills, teaching a lot of level 1 skills around Microsoft Office to ever diminishing classroom sizes, and very few lawyers attending. So what if we could automate some of that ongoing training to develop those level 1 skills, and maybe even into the level 2 and level 3 competency areas for those that require it? What if we could do more of that using this tool to guide people through the learning and interject that live instructor at the appropriate time when they can bring the most value? So maybe at milestone points through in a learning plan, we would go to a class that would be more of a summary class where there's question and an answer, an opportunity to work on hands-on activities once I've developed some of these skills, and work with that instructor. Or maybe that instructor, instead of teaching, primarily teaching small groups, basic level 1 word skills, maybe that instructor can now spend more time with our lawyers working who seldom go to classes, and work with them one-on-one or in groups or in practice groups or in work groups to work on what are the technology issues that they're having, what are the workflow issues they're having that the trainers can help them to work through, and spend less time on just teaching the rote skills on how to use Microsoft Office if we could use the tool to do that. So within the tool, we have some assessment options. for you to be able to baseline where people's skills are when they come into the firm. Or if you're starting with the existing employees, you could do a baseline of where your existing employees are, and then they can individually develop themselves against a preset level 1, level 2, level 3 competency design for their position. So we have concepts of what we call knowledge checks and simulations and even assignments. So let me show you what one of these knowledge checks looks like. So at individual skill level, discrete skills, or let's say we're looking at some soft skills. Here's a little piece of soft skills video about body language, okay? And maybe this is required I'm going to start at the beginning again.
Welcome to the Traveling Coaches Body Language course. Click the next button to proceed. Understanding body language is a key component of effective two-way communication. First, your own body language reveals your feelings and attitude to others. And secondly, their body
I am not going to make you watch everything about body language, but suffice to say this is an example of one of our soft skills pieces. And at the conclusion, what I really care about is not that people watched it or how many times they watched it or where they watched it. What I care about is did they understand the material that was presented and could they tell me what they learned? And the way we do that is through an assessment, in this case what we call a knowledge check. So associated with this content is a knowledge check. And we can require this or we can make these optional. Again, these are choices that you might have, but what I may want to know is not only did Joe watch this, or really do I care, perhaps Joe's been doing this for years, or in this case Susan Gold, and we just want to know if Susan understands these concepts, and if she does, we're not going to require her to go any further into this learning. We're going to say you demonstrated competency, move forward. So there's a couple of questions here. What does body posture communicate to the audience? What are the benefits? Okay, and what are examples of open body posture? Okay, how do you think I did? These are set up by default that you have to score 80% or greater to pass. I'm submitting, and the survey says I got 81%. I just passed. It'll show me what I got correct or incorrect. It gives me some summary. It looks like I got partial credit for this one. I got this one correct. I got partial credit for this one. All right, simple knowledge check. We can do this on a lot of our content. You can determine if they're mandatory or if they're just something that the users might want to engage in to know where they are in a particular topic, if they understand the material and they're ready to progress. We also have the concept of what we call simulations. So maybe there are a number of related skills that I need to know how to use in concert. And I want a simulation of the application to see if I can take a number of discrete skills and use them together. So here's an example of some word skills. Actually, it's office skills. There's a concept in Microsoft Office since version 2007 called the backstage view. And the backstage view carries between Word to Excel and PowerPoint and Outlook to some degree. But there are a number of file and save and forward features, conversion, document inspection that live in the backstage view. And if I'm comfortable and confident in how to use the backstage view in one app, I can use it in all of them. So this is a timed event where I have to follow the green prompts and perform the things that are asked. Use the menu to open a document. So, right, they want me to use the backstage view. So, browse my computer. Property development. Save the document as a new document. I'm supposed to be using the backstage view. File name has been entered, so I'm going to save it. Close the document. You see, it's asking me to perform a whole lot of skills, but let's say I'm a secretary that's been here for 15, 20 years. Instead of watching each of those discrete videos that had something to do with the backstage view, I might jump forward to this simulation, demonstrate my competency, and move right through that learning plan. I want to print just the current page. File, print. I want to print all pages. I want to print current page. And then print. Attach it as a PDF. File, share, email, send to PDF. Attach it as an instant message. File. Share. Send by instant message. Check the compatibility. Again, back to the Backstage view. And I'm going to check compatibility. Okay. Convert. File. Save that. We'll save it as a .doc this time. Finish converting. Now convert it back to the other format. Oh. Quick access toolbar. All right. I got 37 out of 41, 90%. I passed that simulation. Now you saw that the activity was a little different than the first one, which was just a couple of questions about a discrete skill. Now I'm being asked to use a whole bunch of skills together in concert. And then at the highest level, at that competency level, you know, I mentioned that level 3, that expert, where we're at the top of the mountain. Maybe we want to know even more. Maybe what we want to know is, can somebody use a whole range of what would be tested in various simulations to do a very large, complex activity? Maybe it's to create a large document that has associated certificates with it, or maybe it's to create a presentation and deliver it. Who knows what that might be? We have the concept now of what we call assignments. So there are opportunities to, oh, I'm in the wrong place, let me go back. There are opportunities to do assignments. So here is an annual skills assessment. So maybe I've run my staff through this professional development program, and then each year we might have an annual reassessment where there's kind of a baseline activity at the highest level, but maybe we've changed a version of Office, so it's a little different in Office 2016 than it was in 2013, or we've changed one of our tools, or maybe nothing changed. We just want to make sure that people still remember, so we might do an annual assessment. And the way this works is I'm given some documents to open, like a package of documents. And that includes some things that they want me to format, and maybe some instructions and an example of what it's going to look like when I'm finished. And I'm given some instructions, and I work on this in my own computer with my own document management system and my own template numbering tools, and everything is my own version. Let me bring this over to show you. So this might be a rather complicated document in which I have to bring a lot of skills that I've learned over the development of the program to bear. And in this case, it looks like we're doing a lot of formatting activities on this document. Okay. And then when I'm finished with all of this, I submit the results. It goes back to the system. It gets delivered to an expert, a subject matter expert, an IT trainer, someone like that, and they evaluate my work product. They look to see if I did technically, if I completed all the tasks correctly, but they also look aesthetically. Just because I know how to format a document doesn't mean that I necessarily formatted the breaks of the tables on the pages correctly, or maybe I chose technically a correct font but visually not a good-looking font, or I didn't use the right header on page 2, or some things that it takes a human eye to look at as well as a machine. So this is an opportunity at that highest level for you to bring an expert to bear and to look at someone's work product. All of that is built into LegalMind. So we have these different forms of assessment. We also have the concept of what I would call performance support. So I mentioned to you that we have this massive content library, and then it's available not only from my desktop when I'm trying to work, but it's available from my mobile devices. So maybe I'm a busy lawyer and I'm away from the office, and I got an email. I'm a new associate, and they asked me to redline a document, and I'm not quite sure exactly what we use for redlining or what that means. I'm relatively new. So I don't know if I'm supposed to search for Workshare Professional or for Compare Docs, or do we do this in Native Word or whatever it might be. So I can just go to this little search box, and this could be on my computer or on my phone. It's kind of like Google, and I have natural speech search. So I type the term redline. And the system, because it knows what tools we have, look here, look what it's checked off. It says, oh, that applies to Compare Docs, because apparently we use that tool rather than Workshare or something else. And there's some things in DocX tools that would help me. Oh, and we have Workshare as well. So when it does the search, it looks against the tools that our firm has and says, you know, you got a question about redlining, maybe one of these might be the right subject, Joe. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know this. So I click the button. And if this is on my phone or on my tablet or at my desk, here's all my media choices. So if I want to watch the video, great. This one's long at 4 minutes. Some of these things are 45 seconds to a minute to 2 minutes. So 4 minutes, I mean, that's one of the longer bits of content we have in this micro-learning catalog. But we seldom are very intrusive of someone's time. Maybe I want to practice clicking through the steps. I don't remember what step 2 was. Or maybe I just want to look at the tip sheet, the step-by-step sheet, because I'm a reader, and I just want to know 1, 2, 3, 4, what are the steps? It's all right there for me. And all I have to do is click it. And if I've already done it, you can see right here, I've already done this one. Doesn't mean I can't come back and do it again. So I have a performance support tool. We are adding, I mentioned to you before that we're growing our content library. So in addition to these kinds of courses for Word and Office and document management and template numbering and the soft skills and the compliance courses, we are also adding some new courses that are specific to information that often lawyers ask about. And the lawyers often are using additional technology when they're at client sites, in the boardrooms, in the courtrooms. They're using case management and litigation support tools. They're using search tools. They're using deposition. There's all kinds of technology they're using on their phones and their tablets and their laptops when they're away from the office. And we're building some new content libraries for that. This will be great for the lawyers. So if I'm in the courtroom and I have a question about that app that's on my iPad, I could go open up LegalMind, click a button. I would be authenticated because I'm already an employee of the firm, and if I have mobile device management on my phone, it would go right into LegalMind, and I could type in, what my question was, and it would bring back performance support immediately to my phone. And so I could get my questions answered, whether I'm in the same time zone or around the world anytime. This is when it gets pretty strong, that it's a performance support tool for the lawyers, as well as a great talent development tool. Now, I have talked pretty fast ad nauseum. Let me show you a few more things, and then we will make it available for some questions. Not only is LegalMind this really, really neat collection of video content and this reading content and a way to drive, we also know that there are opportunities for instructor-led training. So as a subscriber to LegalMind, there is an entirely second catalog of content that's available to you, and you get to it through, I've gone into what's called the Facilitator Corner. Now, in a real-world example, a secretary or an LAA like Susan Gold would not have administrative rights and would not be able to go back here. I have those rights so that I can show you. And you would have those if you're an administrator of the system, someone in HR or professional development or IT. But this is where all of the complementary instructor-led learning lives. So for the online content that you saw, the micro-learning, we also have instructor-led content on a lot of this technology. So if you wanted to do instructor-led hands-on training, we have training guides and quick reference cards and exercises with legal documents and assessments and a whole other library of instructor-led materials that you would have access to and would be able to address from within LegalMind. I mentioned earlier On Guard. We have a whole catalog of information security content that includes videos and presentations and posters and awareness commercials and presentations and meetings and email reminders, and all of that content lives out here as well. And if you subscribe, you can get into that content and take advantage of that. And then there's all of our other soft skills library and our technology library and your ability to link to content that you maintain. It's spinning its way back here. So I have kind of run really fast here, and why don't I do this? Justin, I want to leave this up so that I can, if someone asks, I can move to it. Have you received any questions? And if so, why don't you give those to me, and I'll start with those to begin with. And if you have a question, now's a great time if you want to type it into the chat and send it. Justin will let me know what those are, and I'll try and show you what you have questions about today.
Sure thing, Joe. At this time, we do not have any questions. But if we do,
I talk really fast, and I'm not that good, so I'm sure everyone's typing away frantically right now with some questions, because this is pretty slick stuff. And what I'm showing you here was configured for this particular instance, but realize we've got some choices. I see a question. What does the program cost? There's somebody that's cutting right to the chase. The answer is easy. It is a subscription, an annual subscription to which you receive everything. You receive all of the content, access for all of your employees, the learning programs, the onboarding programs, the templates. You can pick and choose. And that price kind of varies depending on the size of your firm, and it may also vary depending on the time of the year. Let me give you the list pricing, and then let me tell you about some things that are going on. Right now, the list pricing is $100 per year to have everything, okay? Per employee per year, $100. We are running some promotions at the end of this year, very attractive promotions where you can reduce that cost by 50%. So one could go into a subscription if you did it before the end of this year at $50 per employee. And there's some one-time expenses for onboarding and branding and some other things, and we can certainly get you prepare an estimate for you and your particular firm. If you happen to have been one of our customers of our class and Classy in the past, you may also have some credit available as you transfer from one product to the other, and so we can take those into account as well. Good question. What else, Justin?
Looks like that's the only question so far. I do like the cutting right to the chase, so that's great. It's a great question.
While we're waiting for some questions, let me show you a couple more things here. I had mentioned that we had calendars, and so if you're familiar with this in other learning systems you might have seen, but people can go in on a calendar and they can pick topics. They can filter by their location or their role or audience, as we call it, and they can pick individual events and they can register. One click and they register. It's not going to let me register for something that occurred last month. Questions? Okay, there we go. So chat your questions. Good, good. I would love to think, being in the learning and development field, that your lawyers are going to just log in first thing every morning and jump on the calendar and say, what can I learn today? Let me find what classes Joe has scheduled. The reality is that that's seldom the case. Instead, people are very busy and they want their learning to come when they have time. So you can certainly schedule these events. But I think what you'll find is that people will take advantage of this performance support and ad hoc learning, and they'll take advantage of these learning programs to sneak training in when they have time, and they'll eventually cover more material than they might have in a live event, but they get to do it in context and in a time that makes sense for them. But there are occasions when you need to have scheduled activities. Maybe it's compliance training. Maybe it's a rollout. Maybe it's some of those professional development events where you're bringing in an important partner. Their time is crucial, so we need to make it available to as many people as possible in a live event. We certainly have a facility for that. You have to pay for all personnel. The way we license this is the way people license things like Microsoft Office or your document management. It's based on the size of the firm. Now, there are, depending on the size of the firm and your relationship with our class and Classy, that number, that $50 to $100 a user is kind of a moving target. But we do license for the entire firm. There was another question that came up. Justin, what was the question about MCLE? I saw one pop up. Let's see if I can get to it. Is CLE credit tied? By the nature of much of our content being micro-learning and the fact that most U.S. CLE authorities look for training in increments of 1 hour, not much of our content as it originally stands is creditable for CLE. Now, in some jurisdictions, we've had people that have strung content together. So, 10 6-minute videos, and they've gotten CLE credit. We do have some of our content within our information security catalog called OnGuard, which does pull up CLE credit. In fact, in most jurisdictions, it pulls up ethics credit, which is that holy grail of CLE credits. But in other cases, we don't develop CLE content today. But if you have CLE content, either your firm has already developed content or you record events or you have some other sources, we can certainly link to your sources. We can track people's participation. We can send out forms for their sign-off. We can run reports about their participation, yes. What other questions might we see? chat. What is the optimum size of firm that works best? That's a great question. Our largest client on the system has 11,000 employees, and they use it for onboarding. And they have some specific learning programs, whether one is a staff or a new associate, and it runs them through the onboarding program. I think our smallest firm is less than 50 employees. They never had a full-time trainer. They wanted to do more staff development as well as provide a performance support for their lawyers. This was a really nice solution as opposed to hiring a full-time trainer. They got a lot more bang for their buck. Actually, the cost was lower than hiring a full-time employee, but they got a lot more access to a lot more material. So I don't know that there's a particular size. I would say if it's a very large firm that has a very mature learning organization, for some, this is easy to grasp because they're just moving from one system to another. For others, it's a longer process because we have to map a lot of processes from the existing system to the new. But we have AmLaw 100 firms, and we have firms of under 50 employees. Good question. What other questions do we have? Justin, you see anything else?
I do not, Joe.
Oh, there comes one. How do you recommend using LegalMind in conjunction with the annual performance evaluation? Great question. Now, I'll preface that with something real quick here. I do not pretend, Joe Buser here, that this particular assessment be the be-all and end-all in a hiring and firing situation. I think it would be difficult to draw a direct line between someone's attainment of certain educational goals and whether or not they are most competent to be advanced or promoted or given a raise. But I do think it's fair to use learning goals as part of an annual assessment. So it is not uncommon, and I expect that you're doing this today, that you have assignments of your staff that might involve some level of education. Some firms say so many credits per year, or other firms might say you just have certain learning goals, and at the end of the year, did you achieve them? The nice thing about us having an assessment tool is if you do have educational goals, we'll be able to get a quantitative result. In other words, if I've given you a learning program of level 1 skills for your role and required that you score at least 80% on these assessments, and your timeline is now until the end of the year, I can run a report and quickly determine are you in compliance or out and discuss it. We can also, and this is something that I'm a big fan of, is not making it just an annual event, but really making this more of an ongoing or a milestone-driven kind of a program. So we could build that level 1 learning program, but it could include some check-in opportunities with your supervisor or with human resources or whoever it might be, so that as we go throughout that learning program, there are milestone events where you check in, and we don't just find out at the end of the year that someone's not necessarily in compliance, that they have opportunity to bring them back throughout the year. So we can put milestone events in there where an individual gets to a certain point in the learning program, and when they achieve certain goals, then it opens up an opportunity to have a meeting with a supervisor where certain things are discussed, and then they progress down the learning plan. So we can intercede along the way, or we can give you reporting information at the conclusion of a period, whether it be an anniversary date or the end of a calendar year. Good question. And we would give whoever you designate the administrative rights to be able to run those reports. So those people could be, in the HR department or professional development or IT or whomever it might be, department heads, whoever you wanted to have the ability to run reports. We can also dump data to CSV files. So if you need to import it into another system or go to Excel and print, pivot tables and graphs and charts about completion, you can do that. We're not hoggish with the data. There's a lot of data that we do collect, and you can export that and use that how you see fit. Good question. Come on now, keep them coming. We've still got about 10 minutes. Again, I'm not that good a presenter. There's bound to be questions you have. I will encourage you, if you've seen this today and this has sparked some curiosity, and you think, I'd like to dig a little deeper into how this might work at my firm, Or I might like to engage others in the firm from other departments. We've had conversations, and I'd kind of like them to have a look. You can contact me. If you know your account executives and traveling coaches, you can contact them. You can go to our website, travelingcoaches.com, and click the button and say, I'd like to know more, and one of us can give you a shout. But there's a lot that we could dig even deeper than what we can cover in an hour here. We can answer specific questions about your firm. So feel free, if that's of interest to you, to follow up. This is not the kind of a decision that one would make lightly, but it is the kind of a decision that we would like to engage as many different stakeholders in your firm and talk about not what you're doing today that you dislike, but what you'd like to do in the future. What would your ideal system look like, and how could a tool like this that's available anytime, anywhere to anyone in the firm, how could this advance your professional development and your competency development goals so that you get the maximum value out of your employees? Got a few more minutes. Thank you for putting my address up there. What else can I answer? Come on now. Again, you'll notice it's very clean. If you were to look at this on your phone or your tablet, it's real easy to scroll through. The content just renders itself well. And then if you were to slide your phone into landscape mode and you want to stretch it because you're like me and your eyes are a little old, everything, refreshes itself to fit the appropriate form factor. It's very modern in the way it presents itself. Some of these systems you might have seen at your current or previous firms, they don't do well in mobile environments. Many of what used to be called learning management systems are what still are in law firms, and there are several that are very popular in law firms. They're primarily very good event schedulers. They're quite good at scheduling classes and tracking who attends and who doesn't attend, printing rosters and printing lists of who went to class, tracking butts and seats. Important, but from our perspective, it's not important to track who attended what. It's really important to track who understands and knows and can demonstrate knowledge of what, which is why we have the assessment tools and the other things. Here's another great question. Clients use LegalMind. Do you know who is responsible for it, such as HR, IT, or professional development? Good question. It depends on the firm. Historically, our company, Traveling Coaches, because we were involved in many technology educational initiatives, we often came to the firm by way of the IT department and the IT trainers. But once LegalMind, our portal, was up and running and all of these soft skills were added and these concepts around assessment and around onboarding became available, we have had much more driving of the projects from the HR department in the firms than we have from IT. So in firms that are medium and large, that have large IT and HR departments, we've been in meetings where the two groups have come together. They may even have both funded from their individual budgets, and each of them actually had a budget reduction instead of having redundancy in two different systems, one that PD or HR was running and another one that IT was running. They had the single system, all the content in one place. There was a net savings to the firm. And then we got everybody around the table to talk about, and the new hire program is a perfect example where each of those different groups gets to weigh in on what would be helpful for them. Because if you put yourself in the shoes of your employee, of your lawyer, of your staff member, I'm trying to develop myself. I don't discriminate between whether this is a professional development class, I need to go to this department, or this is an HR compliance topic and I need to go to this department, or this is about a piece of technology, so I should go ask this person. I just want to develop myself in what way is appropriate for me to be able to do my job better and to support our clients better. So instead of me trying to decide where to go for the learning, how about the learning system, LegalMind, being able to present me with content from all three of those different groups that's appropriate. So it is not uncommon if the first person that heard about LegalMind was in HR, for them to call the IT people and say, hey, you got to see this, let's have a conversation. Or the people in IT see it first and they say, you know what, I think you need to talk to our HR people as well, because some of the capabilities you're talking about we don't have today, and we think that they would really benefit. So I would say it's kind of a toss-up right now, whether that project is being driven by IT or by HR, and more, if the firm has a talent development group beyond just recruiting, but actual development, both of the other groups, IT and HR, are saying, hey, should we invite them? I was just in a meeting this week where we started with IT, and then I met the HR people, and then I met the PD people, and then they were all in a big meeting at their headquarters, and we were talking about how each of the groups could benefit from the tool. Great question. We've still got about 4 minutes. Any more questions? These are all really good questions, by the way. Is there anything else I can show? Oh, here we go. I mentioned before, like on the feature items, it could have something like a flu shot or a picnic. You know what? If this is a central place where HR and professional development and IT are going to place their different educational and development activities, there's no reason why it couldn't contain other kinds of activities like wellness programs or you name it. So this could be a central point of communication, and you use things like this featured item to push information. Everything that you've seen in here, by the way, has a unique link or URL, every piece of content. So if you want to link this into your intranet, you've got an intranet page and some of this content is relevant, you could put links that would go directly to that relevant piece of content. If you have a help desk or a trainer and they want to send some reinforcement material to a user, they can send them the link that would take them right to the piece of content that was in question. And vice versa. If you were on one of your pages, you could link back into our material. We have what's called a single sign-on. So once I'm logged into the network for the firm, I don't have to log into LegalMind again. LegalMind knows who I am, knows that I'm a valid user, and I can go in and out of LegalMind. I can pull links of content that are in LegalMind into our intranet and vice versa without having to re-authenticate. If I'm on the go with my mobile phone or my laptop, it just depends on how we have our mobile device management set up, but we can configure that as well to make it innocuous for me to be able to log in and get to content. We have about 2 minutes left. That's one more question. Well, I will say that if I don't see any more questions pop in, that we've run our course today. I certainly appreciate your time. We tried to cover an awful lot in 1 hour. Probably gave you a little bit of information overload like I described on the new hire training. I kind of turned on the fire hose and just let it rip, and hopefully it will give you some food for thought, because we would love to continue this conversation with you and others in your firm. LegalMind is taking off. We really launched this product about a year ago. Like I mentioned, we've had a content library for almost 15 years, but the portal to access it is about a year and a half old, and we already have 65 law firms. I mentioned to you the largest being over 11,000 employees and the smallest under 50 that are using the tool, some that use it for all of these competency domains, some that use it for a few, some that use it for security, some that use it for security and for content to develop their staff. It is available to you if you want to join the gang. Here's a last question. What's the turnaround time to get it up and running? Because there are a lot of templates, depending on how much of your own personal content you bring to the mix, if not much, we can have this thing up and running in a month or two. It just depends on the availability of your team to make decisions. There's some critical design decisions about what's in and what's out for our firm, what does imagery look like, how are we going to brand it, how do we design your programs for your people. So there's some back and forth, but we as the host do all the heavy lifting, so you don't have to sit around and do programming. We have meetings with you, we go through options, you tell us what you like, we program it, the system is up and running, all the content is there, we're just turning on filters. So it could be as quick as 6 to 8 weeks. It could be longer if you have a more complicated program that you want to build in. Good question. I mentioned to you earlier that if this is of interest, that now is an incredible time to purchase because of that half price through the end of the year. We are already lining up firms because of that preferential pricing that want to get this up and running in the early part of next year. So I would encourage you, if you want to pursue the conversation, to do it sooner rather than later. Get nearer the front of that line than the back of that line. We have a whole team of system administrators and customer engagement managers that will be assigned to you, but they can only do so many projects at once, and the sooner you get in the queue, the sooner you can have the system up and running. Justin, I think I'm at the end of my hour. If you want to wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say on behalf of the ALA, we appreciate everybody taking time out of the day to join us. And thank you to you, Joe. We appreciate your time.
Well, and thank you, Justin. Thanks to all the folks at ALA. This was a wonderful event. I mean, I wish I had as much preparation and planning as you put into this to make this go off seamlessly. I want to thank all of the folks that logged in today. An hour is very important. Your time is valuable, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. We'd love to know what you think about LegalMind, what you think would be helpful for your firm, what you think we can improve. So please contact me. Let me know if you'd like to know more. If there's others you know that would like to know more, others at other firms, they couldn't attend today. The recording, I think, is going to be put up for you to review. But feel free to contact me or others here at Traveling Coaches, and we can get into your particular use case and answer more questions. Thank you all again very much.